It's the Brandon Cruz Daily Fantasy Podcast, where I go and look at loan plays and strategies specifically designed for GPPs. This is a show for people who are already informed in daily fantasy sports on these contests operate. If you have a question late and ask a stupid question, feel free to tweet them away on Twitter at BrandonCruzDFS. Most importantly, take everything here with a grain of salt and use your best judgment making entries. Additionally, if you have a gambling addiction, that's just not my problem. Check your sense of feelings at the door. We're talking about the Busch Clash at the LA Coliseum. Most likely, the back half of this video is going to be ranting. I'm going to focus on everything DFS right off the bat. So let's just jump right in there. Let's look at salaries real quick. This right here should tell you a lot, and obviously I'm not very high on this event. I think it's a gimmick. I think it's a made for TV event. Outside of that, when salaries are this soft, DraftKings is outside of what we already know. DraftKings is clearly saying, like, look, obviously we don't know who's going to be in the event outside of Larson being the only guy pretty much locked in because he's the highest guy in points, whatever. Which he'll most likely get in anyway. Anyway, pricing is extremely soft. You don't want to have your drivers, you don't want to have the field that makes the event be too expensive to actually build a lineup with. And so pricing is extremely soft. And this is probably the softest pricing I've ever seen in NASCAR. Very similar to certain NFL showdown contests, either at the start of the year or on holidays, to where pricing is really soft because they expect a lot of hype and a lot of viewership to go to this. And obviously people are going to want to play daily fantasy sports for it. So the pricing is extremely soft, and we can see that it's really based off of how these guys are running last year. You can make some arguments here and there, but really it's based up until we get around Cindric and AJ Allmendinger around 13th and 14th highest priced. It's pretty much lined up with where we saw everybody at last year. Obviously, they're throwing some shade to people like Priest and the Rick Ware, Carr, Buscher, Castle, obviously Ty Dillon, McDowell, Gillen in there. But really, outside of that, look, this is a gimmick. It's a made for TV event. I just said that, but this is a POS event. Building one line. I'm here because I'm going to be sitting there watching it. One line. Outside of that, I'm not going to be spending anywhere near the amount of money that I spend. I might throw $10 on this contest. I would much rather just move any money that you had thought of spending on this, move it to the Xfinity Series race, move it to the truck race at Daytona, move it to Auto Club, move it to the other races this season or this month. Don't waste money on this. Don't waste your time on this. Don't bet. Don't even bother putting in real money for this. Because I think it's gonna be a joke. That's my DFS advice. Let's try and break it down of how I would imagine you're gonna have to approach it. So obviously you got 150 laps in this race. You got 67.5 laps, fast laps. My bad. 67.5 fast lap points available and 37.5 laps led available. There's an easy situation where we see one of two situations here. So the first situation is nothing really happens. And the reason that this is, in my opinion, a less likely but a smarter outcome is because, look, we've had supply chain issues. These next-gen cars were not ready to ship. You've heard me rant about that at least in 4 of the videos this month. But long story short, like, this car was not ready. These teams are really not prepared. They don't have a lot of chassis. They're supposed to have 7 for this season. Most of them have 2 or 3, and most teams are planning to use this car at another event later this year, whether it be an intermediate track, whether it be a short track. So you don't just want to tear equipment up. You don't want to be wasting your team's time and resources rebuilding one of these cars when the Daytona 500 is 2 weeks away, when the season is 2 weeks away. So not only do you not want to waste that, you're also, wasting money driving across the country to the West Coast. You're going to be there for a couple days. You got to pay to fly everybody out there, pay to fly everybody back. And if you tear up a car, then you just arrive back, and it's just a big waste of time for the teams. And so a lot of teams don't want to be tearing stuff up. A lot of teams don't want to be here. I would honestly not be shocked if we see teams try hard in practice, and then if we see good cars, choose to not get in the main event from the LCQ. Just get laps on the car. And outside of that, like, when you look at data or anything useful from here, I'm not looking at Bristol data. I'm not looking at New Hampshire data. I'm not looking at Martinsville data. Certainly from the past, last year, year before, not looking at any of that. The only practice data I would care to look at is here, and I'm not even going to really dive into that until I know who is in the main event. And really, that you'll understand who's in, because obviously, let me bring this up over here. Obviously, the 1st through 16th starting positions are going to be based on the heat race. So really, once you get through the first 4 heat races, you know pretty much the player pool that you're looking at least the first 16 guys. Obviously, 17th through 23rd is going to be taken from the LCQ, and the highest points finisher from last year, not already locked in, is going to be the last starting position. But really, you're going to already know who you want as your dominator at the end of the first, really, I would argue the first 4 heats, because there's a good chance that it's going to be one of the heat race winners. And so at that point, you're just looking to see who's going to get you some place differential plays. With 150 laps, it runs into a situation that we normally see in the truck series of where you want to find at least the one dominator in this race. So just for an example, if you lead 50 laps in this race, that's only 12.5 DraftKings points. If you lead 50, or if you get 50 fast laps in this event, it's 22.5 points. And so really, when you're the leader, you're going to have to lead a good portion of this race to guarantee a position of possibly making the optimal, even if you get spun out. Say if you lead, let's just say for an example, you lead 86 laps. That's 21.5 points. That's a situation where you can spin out, basically get passed by 20 guys, and it null and voids all of that. And so there's situations to where the lap leader and the main dominator of this race doesn't make the optimal because it gets spun on the last couple of restarts or whatever. Kind of leaving the argument of not really happening, take care of the car, you bunch of idiot drivers. Let's try and save some time at the shop entering the season. So the second event that you possibly run into is just an absolute wreckfest and an absolute joke of an event where these guys are basically just turning their helmets around, driving, not even looking in front of them. Personally, I don't think we see that. I really don't believe we see that until the end of the main event, because we have practice. So a lot of guys are going to go out and practice and understand the and yet again, we're going to see, these cars are hard to drive. These guys are struggling at this track. They're spinning out. It's not the car, it's the tires. These guys are on new tires, the wider tires. They have way more grip. You can put the power down way more. You can slow down a lot later and a lot harder than you could in the old track or in the old car. That's the main issue that these guys run into here. It's not necessarily this car is hard to drive. They're just trying to figure it out. And so since not only haven't we been at a track like this, I would honestly believe that guys with Whelen modified experience are going to have an advantage right off the bat. I would look towards Ryan Preece. Honest to Christ, Ryan Preece in the 15 is probably one of my favorite guys entering this race. I believe he makes the field, and I think he has the easier time transitioning on this short track right off the bat in practice. I could be wrong here, but I believe that guys who at least have experience racing with wider tires and a car with a lower center of mass on these short tracks is going to have an advantage. Just putting that out there. So in practice, we're going to see guys, and if you look back at the Goodyear tire test that Junior had, that Clint Boyer participated in, that Tony Stewart participated in at Bowman Gray Stadium, which yet again, if you want a race at Bowman Gray Stadium, you just want wrecks and chaos. Whatever. The issue that Stewart was running into because he was spinning out is just because he wasn't able to figure out in such a short amount of time he was in the car where the loss of traction is. It's a lot farther than it was in previous years. If you look back at my video that I made early in January focusing on the things that you need to, key points that you need to look at entering this year, I talk about the slip angle and where the loss of traction has been changed this year compared to last year. That was where Stewart was running into. Junior said the same thing. Junior didn't spin out in that Goodyear test at Bowman Gray, but he wasn't going to push it to find that limit because he just didn't want to tear the car up. He didn't want to wreck the car. Stewart was out there trying to find where that was, specifically for them to have an idea of what tire they wanted to bring to this race in LA. And so I think we're going to see a lot of spinouts in practice. Or maybe not spinouts, but guys being really uncomfortable with the car or not being happy with the car, at least right off the bat. Probably most likely getting squirrely out of the corners or either getting squirrely or slowing down and almost brake checking the guys behind them early in practice because they're getting on the brake too early because they feel like they need to, whereas they can actually really probably drive into this corner a lot harder than they're initially going to expect to. At that point, we head to qualifying. And so you have qualifying on Saturday to determine where you're going to start in the heat races on February 6th. And so, yet again, when we're looking at, the practice data, it's going to be a lot of, was gonna say convoluted. It's not necessarily that, but a lot of data spread out. Like I think we're gonna see vast differences in lap time between where they were on track, if they had any traffic in front of them, how many laps they were on, how comfortable they feel with the car right off the bat. I think we're going to see a huge discrepancy in practice times following Saturday. So whenever you're looking at practice data that's most likely to be pulled from here, yes, it is good. Yes, we can see 10 lap averages. We can see the 10 lap runs, 15 lap runs, 20 lap runs, everything like that. But I think we're going to see a pretty good spread. So maybe I think the field might be spread between at least maybe 5/10, maybe 6/10. I mean, it's going to be pretty big for such a small track. And if it's any bigger, I'm not going to be shocked. Like I said, it's going to determine on how you feel comfortable when you unload, because these drivers have never driven on a track this small. They've never driven on a track this small with this car. So not only are the drivers not used to it, you're not necessarily sure exactly what you want to bring setup wise. Obviously, we're going to most likely be running second gear at this track. We're not going to get out of second gear. But how do you set the car up for that? What do you set in the rear end to make sure that you don't just have your driver get on the gas and just leave rubber down the straightaway? And so that's an issue that the crews are going to have to figure out, as pretty much they're going to be leaving the shops probably Tuesday. Let me think. They're going cross country. The trailers might actually be leaving the track Tuesday evening, or be leaving the shops Tuesday evening. And so right now is the time, I'm talking Monday, January 31st right now. This is the time where they're deciding what they're going to bring into that car. Once they get to that track, as I said, they go through practice. They're going out, figuring out what's going on. I honestly believe that the qualifying times are going to give you a better idea of where each car is in terms of where that car and where that driver is comfortable, not necessarily the practice data, because you're not necessarily like taping the car up for qualifying. I mean, obviously you're a bit in Q trim, but the track is so small, it's so simple, and the distance is so tiny, and you're only maxing out. I'm going to assume you're maxing out at maybe 65, 70, possibly 80. I doubt we see anything over 90 on the straightaways. Could be wrong here, just kind of guesstimating. Haven't you driven on iRacing? No, iRacing's a piece of shit product anyway. Like, I'm not using iRacing practice data for any of this stuff. But outside of that, like, practice times and qualifying times are going to be so close that I think qualifying is going to give you a way better idea of where people are than if you look at practice data, which I think you still should. And I'm not trying to like be contradicting here. I'm just saying that I think qualifying data is going to confirm whatever you're looking for in practice, really. Once we get to the heat races, obviously we got the 4 heat races, 25 laps. Each heat race is going to have, let me see, 8, looks like 10 drivers in each one. If I could count to 10, that'd be fantastic. They're taking top 4 from the first 4 heat races, and so the guys who are going to be fast are either going to, when they take the initial green, I would imagine the leader on the inside lane has the highest chance to pull away from the field in the heat races. Maybe not even pull away, but get 1, 2, 3 car lengths away and feel comfortable in the corners. Everybody else is going to be, bumper to bumper, side by side in those heat races. Do we see guys tearing their equipment up in the heat races? It's NASCAR. These guys have an IQ of 7. I'm going to say no. I'm going to go on a limb and say the heat races, we don't see a lot of crashes. Maybe a spin out here and there, somebody over braking, and I do believe that if we do have crashes, it's going to be on the entry of the corners of guys slamming in behind people, bump and run as they say, but most likely spinning the guy out on the inside lane and forcing him into the guy on the outside lane. That's how I think any crash in the heat races are going to go. And outside of that, I don't think we're going to tear a lot of stuff up in the heat races. The leader and the winner of these heat races, if it does go the way that I think of the inside lane, or the guy starting first in the inside lane after 1 or 2, 3 laps might have a 1, 2, 3 car length lead on the guy behind him, that's what you want to look out for your dominator. And so the 4 heat race winners are most likely going to be the favorites for the dominator in the 150 lap Busch Clash. Now, do you go 1 or 2 of those guys? Because it's risky. If you do believe that this is a wreckfest, you're going to want to be heavier on the last 3 guys into this. So the guy starting 23rd, I think, is pretty much the safest play. And I think there's a high chance that the guys starting 23rd, 22nd, and 21st in the main event have a chance of being optimal. Really high chance of being optimal because there's so little place differential here. You need I'm going to assume you're going to need 1 or 2 lap leaders in this, in the optimal lineup. And clearly, I don't know who that is. Obviously, I'm talking right now on a Monday, so obviously we don't know the qualifying positions, but I think that's more irrelevant. You're trying to think of how this race plays out. I think it's more of 1 or 2 guys lead laps. There's a big chunk of guys who run into issues, most likely starting probably from like 6th to 13th, to where they either gain 1 or 3 positions or lose a lot more than that, so they're not going to be optimal. Then you go into like the secondary category of place differential plays from 14th to probably 19th. I think there's a chance somebody from that is optimal. And then the guys starting 23rd, 22nd, and 21st have nothing to lose. They have all to gain. And so anybody who wrecks, anybody who has run into issues late in the race, anything that happens, they can take advantage of that. Even if they have a poor day and you go from 23rd to, let's just say, 18th. So let's say you start dead last and you gain, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4... What is that? I think 29 points can do it. I really believe 29, 28 points out of the last place starter in this race can do it. Can be optimal in this race. And so we're going to try and we're going to squeeze these names out. We're going to squeeze, actually, let's just do this. We're doing 23rd, right? And my idea of how this race plays out, not necessarily my ranking, but I'm going to put an A by the positions that I believe and the drivers, which you can just input here, believe have the highest chance of being optimal. I do believe it's the first 4 guys. I think there is a chance that the guys starting dead last 3 starters in this race, because not only have you, hopefully these guys don't have a shitload of damage, but not only are you starting last, you've gone through the heat race and you've gone through the LCQ, so you almost have more track time than anybody else. Like if you qualify in on your first heat race, that's good, but then you lose the track time that you get in the LCQ. So you start here, like I said, these guys can gain positions. Now, obviously, a lap leader, the winner, can come from anywhere. But just in my brain, where these guys come from, I'm going to use B's and C's here. And I think this will reflect ownership as well. Ownership is most likely going to be really high on the pole sitter for a good reason. If it is Larson, which honestly I do believe that Larson will be one of the top 4 starters in the main event, I think he'll carry ownership. The pole sitter is going to carry ownership. I think if you do want to try and get different, if you're looking at game theory, the guy starting 2nd and the guy starting 4th. I think the percentage that these guys can lead and be the optimal dominator, if they can stay up there, it's probably, I would say it's even across the board, probably about 25% on all of these guys. And so I would be, if you're choosing to play a lot of lineups here, which like I said, I don't believe you should. I don't believe you should waste your time with this a lot. I like the guys starting 2nd. I like the guys starting 4th because I think ownership is going to be lighter on them because they're starting that outside lane. Everybody's going to want to go to the pole sitter. Everybody's going to go to the guy 2nd on the inside lane. I like the outside pole sitter on this. I just, yet again, made the argument that anybody can win, anything can happen, but the guys starting 5th through 11th, if you gain 1 or 2 positions here, I don't think it does that, because there's going to be guys getting way more positions starting farther behind. You lose anything from here, you're not going to be optimal. 12th through 20th, as I just said, like, I know I'm repeating myself, but illustrating it here is at least more fun for me than just saying it in my head. It's... And there's a chance that whoever leads, like there are going to be 3 lap leaders in this race, and they all get taken out late in the race. Then it just turns into a pure place differential type of race. I think the likelihood of all 3 lap leaders being taken out is slim. So you get the 1 lap leader and then just a ton of place differential plays. That's why in my brain, at least right now, assuming, I think if you're looking at percentages being optimal, it's really close between the first 4 starters and the last 3 starters. I think those are your highest chance of being optimal right here. And then after that, it's the guys starting 20th to 12th because you need the place differential plays. That's why I really fucking hate this contest. I really hate this event in general. We're going more into the rant scheme now. That's my preview. Really, because practice data you can, and let me change it. When you're looking at practice data, look at it during the heat races. Obviously, if you have two screens, put the race on your laptop or on your iPad, whatever. But once you know who makes the top 16 from the heat races, then look at the practice data from these guys. Then look at where the qualifying time was to set them in that heat race. What is not really transferring, but what is similar in that? Like, who's showing good data between practice data, qualifying time, and then how they performed in their heat races? Once you have the top 16 guys there, obviously you're going to have the LCQ going on, but you can start basically building your line. You'll pretty much have, I'm going to say, 3 of your 3 drivers on your DraftKings lines. Pretty much you have a good idea of where you're going to go once the top 4 heat races are gone. After that, it's just seeing who the place differential plays in the back is from the LCQ. And that's really it. The time between the LCQ races and the start of this event is most likely an hour. I'm going to say probably an hour 15. I think the slate's going to lock a little bit before they actually do race for the Clash. But once the first 4 heat races are done, you have an idea of who your pool is. Like, from these 16 guys, you know who you're going to want to go to. It's, like I said, it's just determining who the last guys are for your place differential plays. And so that's kind of why, like, I'm not going to make a video post practice on Saturday. I'm not making a video post qualifying on Saturday because that stuff matters, but it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things because we don't know who's in the main event. We just have to wait for the heat races. I'm not going to be live in that because I just want to focus on the Patreon stuff. I just want to focus on getting some projections out there, not some, like, my projections done and everything. And I don't think it's worth, really doing an hour-long live before lock for the Clash because this is just the fucking stupid event. It's a joke of an event. So yeah, that's how I view it as. That's my mentality entering this week. That's my mentality entering Saturday. That's my mentality entering Sunday. Is I'm not going to worry about lines, not going to really worry about diving into data until pretty much heat race 3 is completed. And then once we're in heat race 4, okay, like I said, I have an idea of who I want to go with here. I'll start just checking some quick data points from the practice sessions. But outside of that, I'm building my one line between the LCQ and the start of the main event. That's where we're at. Like I said, I don't believe this is an event that you want to bet a lot on. I don't even know how long I've been going on here. Let's see real quick. Yeah, see, we're 22 minutes in. That's my mentality of entering this race. So let's kind of rant about this a little bit. I had nothing wrong with the Clash at Daytona. No issues there at all. Oh, but these guys are just wrecking in the Clash on the high banks of Daytona. Whose fault is that? Okay, it's like the same argument made with IndyCar at Pocono. The track is not dangerous. Who's killing each other? The drivers. Who's injuring each other? The drivers. If the drivers just respected each other and gave each other room and stopped making stupid plays, we wouldn't have people being killed and injured at Pocono. Same thing at Daytona. Oh, Brandon, they tear too much up. It's too expensive for the team owners at the Clash to just tear things up at Daytona. Who's doing that? It's the drivers. The drivers are choosing to do that. The track is not the issue. These drivers have really no brain cells left. They race stupidly. They don't have a fear of dying, so they just do these dumb plays, and that's why you see a lot of the old Clashes just finishing with like 4 cars undamaged. And then the last one that they had before they went to the road course was Eric Jones winning when his car looked like it just came out of Bristol. I mean, that's the rate. That's the drivers. Don't blame the track. Blame the people participating in the race. Don't blame the game. Blame the players. So when we enter LA, and they're wanting to bring NASCAR to a new market, which is fine. As I open it, this is a made for TV, made for LA event. This is not racing. This is a very similar to a WWE event. I think this would be a fantastic event to go to in person. If I lived closer, I would buy a ticket to this event because it's going to be I don't even know. It's not even a race. Why are we putting money on this? Why are we wasting time putting money on this? In general, really, NASCAR is showing that it's just yet again more for entertainment, and they will interfere in the outcome of races. But this one for sure is an event to where there is no edge. There is no game to go off of or thing to have an idea of how it's going to perform, because we don't know. And not in a sense of, oh, I don't know, I can't make a prediction. No, I mean, like, these drivers could be the absolute dumbest people in this, just wreck each other, or it could be boring and then they wreck at the end. Either way, the outcome is like somebody's getting wrecked. I think it's late in this race for the win, and I think there's a good chance that the highest lap leader of this event, doesn't win the race. I'm not concerned. Like, bring in the music, whatever. I frankly don't care. I ranted in the rant the other day about the music during the cautions. You better commit. I want to hear that. I want to hear the music drop as soon as the yellow comes out. I don't care if somebody's upside down over the fence in the grandstands. We better be playing some music, okay? I want to have a good time. But yeah, like this, I have such little interest in this event. Really, that's it. Last thing, I'm recording this January 31st, February 1st. Join the Patreon. Get all the data sheets for all the real races. I mean, you can join. It'll help you for the Clash. That's what I'm using to look at my practice data points and everything, to read in a real simple fashion between the end of the heat races and the start of the main event. But get in there early. Ask us questions. Get in my Discord early, and then we'll start focusing on stuff for the 500. We'll start focusing on stuff for auto clubs. We'll start focusing on stuff for all the rest of the races this month and entering March. So yeah, February 1st, hop in there, join. Because if you join right now on the 31st, it's going to charge you here, then it's going to charge you tomorrow, and I will not refund you, because I'm telling you right now, it's going to charge you twice. So yeah, thank you for watching the first official preview of this year, and it's a bunch of shit. It's a dumb race. It's very little interest should be placed. Very little money should be placed. Frankly, if you're looking to burn money, find smaller contests for the Super Bowl. Find a smaller entry fee for the Super Bowl. Put the money there. I think you would have much more fun putting money on the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. Don't put in the big contest, because it's going to probably tie about 1,000 times. But find a small contest for the Super Bowl of like 200, maybe 1,000 people. Put the money there. Don't waste time with this. This is such a wrestling made for TV, not real racing event, that it's not worth putting money on. It'll be fun to watch. I'm hoping that somebody will get out and fight each other. Hopefully, I'm sure that's what NASCAR wants. But yeah, like, I mean, this is an LA event, man. There's concerts left and right. I don't believe the racing is the center attraction for a lot of these. I think it's just the event of the weekend. And yeah, that's really how it is. So like I said, I've ranted enough. Can't keep ranting about this event. It's so dumb. The real shows and real live streams return for the duels in 2 weeks. That'll be the first live stream. Then obviously we'll have regular videos, previews coming out for all those races here. But this is it. Out early, out on a Monday. There's nothing I can add, really. This event is a joke. So that's just my idea entering this week. So yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.